Should we take a couple shots first?
Shots of what?
Good question.
Oh, shots.
Shots of tequila
Tequila.
with no tequila.
Well, we all have green tea.
Yeah, Miguel drank mine. He has double.
Salud then.
Salud.
Well, you have anything? We'll just pretend. Bless you. Well, Miguel's got allergies. It's crazy windy outside, but we're here in the element. Talking about love, relationships, living the van life and how that works, having a relationship in the van life. You can share your perspective. I know you lived in a van for a short time, Miguel.
Sounds good.
Long time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few months, almost a year.
Yeah, it's almost Valentine's Day, so it's kind of the season, huh? Yeah.
Sounds good.
Let's do it. We already started.
Right, so let's break the ice.
How do you want to break the ice?
You were telling me something about like breathing techniques or something like that?
Yeah, so we've got something very special here. We'll do an intention setting for this podcast, all right? And this is really going to bring everybody in together. So if you're at home, you're driving, please don't close your eyes. But what we'll do is we'll sit up nice and tall as we can, and we'll start to focus on the breath here. We'll take a deep breath in and a deep exhale. Again, filling up the lungs. And another exhale out. And we're going to breathe in some loving kindness here. Inhale. And we're going to exhale all the bad juju. Again, like this, breathing in. And release, cleansing, exhale out. Now, when I think about love, I think it's important that you fill your own cup first, full of love, and that way you can share that love with others. So with this next breath, we're going to breathe in lots of love here for yourself. Breathe it in. And share it out with a smile. Awesome. Let's go on this journey, guys. Love it. I'm glad you're here. Ready? Let's do it. So we're talking about love and van life. Do you have any thoughts to share, Hal?
Love, or the lack thereof. I'm just kidding. I have a lot of love to give. I have a lot of love inside of me. So, love, it's a big thing, man. Like love, I think it's something that a lot of people think they understand, but I'm not sure that they do. And I'm not saying there's like a right or wrong to it. I think that everyone just needs to understand that what they know about love is what they were shown or what they experienced as children. So when they say things like I love you, or like, do they love themselves or do they love their bodies? Like what does that really mean to people, right? Like, so what do you think love means?
Wow, what does love mean? Oh man.
Like, if you tell someone that you love them, is that different than the love that you say, I love my body? Is that different when you look in the mirror and you say, I love myself? Do you think that it's a different type of love, or do you think that love is universal?
I really got to think about that for a second, but I do feel like the love that you get from, I do feel like it's a little bit different. I do. I think the love that you get from other people can or should help you be a better person or become a better person or want to become a better person, because I feel like if someone loves for you, that also kind of means that they care for you, and because of that, like, you most likely also care for them, which in my world is like, okay, I want to be the best version of myself for this person who loves me. And I guess it's kind of the same when I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to love this person who I'm looking at in the mirror, and I want to be the best person. I want to be the best version of myself every time I look in the mirror. I don't want to look in the mirror and like be ashamed of who I am. So I guess what I do is I work hard to love myself. And like I was saying at the start of this, is like, when you love yourself, I think you can give back to others more freely because you've filled up your own love cup, What about you, Miguel? What do you think?
For me, love is a feeling that you can express or feel to somebody or something. So it's not necessarily like loving a person, right? It can be like, oh, I love my car, I love my body, my shoes. So I think love for me is mostly like something that you can give more than get. I think if you get it, that's a plus, that's a winning. But if you give, don't expect to get the love in return. And it's pretty hard to have both feelings mixed. That's, I will say, that makes a relationship sometimes difficult or in different ways. But that's mostly for me what love is. It's like giving, what you can offer, what you can give to somebody or to yourself. Sometimes, like I say, by things or people.
I think, isn't that the definition of unconditional love? It's like, hey, I'm gonna love you regardless of what you give to me, right? I think that's the definition. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter what I get from you. I'm gonna love you because I want to. For some,
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Right? It's been a year since three of us meet together.
That's true.
Exactly 1 year and 1 day. So
Yeah, that's wild. So now we're still chilling in the elements, recording a little podcast on a crazy windy day. So I apologize for any wind noise out there. Who was your first love?
Who was my first love? Like other than my family, I guess that's the first like love that I experienced. My family, my parents. You're talking about like romantic love, then it would be like my girlfriend in high school, senior year. I graduated high school in 2006, and I think we got together junior or sophomore year of high school, so it was like 2004-ish, maybe 2005. And I had a crush on a girl, and then she became my girlfriend. That was like a really cool time for me. Like in high school, it was just like, I remember listening to like a lot of like emo music, a lot of like punk rock. It wasn't anything crazy. I never really liked the screamo stuff, but like really emotional, really like dudes like who can barely play their guitars, just kind of like whining about people who don't love them back and stuff like that. But it was just like so real for me. I remember being in high school and like music was everything, and just like having a crush on this girl was just like, oh, and like just trying to like go to school and like figure out like, oh, I'm so different. Like the feelings that you have in high school, you know what I mean? And it's just like everything's good. Like, if I just zoom out, everything's good. Like I have a good life and stuff like that. But I like, oh man, I have a crush on this girl. Like life is so tough. Like, like why does no one understand me? So when we got together, it was really sweet for me. It was like having a crush on this girl, and then it was like, wow, she like likes me back, or like, it felt really good. Like, just like, oh wow, like kind of like winning a lottery, so to speak, right? First love, first sex, everything like that, and then like the honeymoon period. Just like being new to it all and just still being young and just being flooded with emotions and hormones. But when I look back on it now, it was probably the least impactful in terms of like love. It was the first love, it was the first crush, but did I really like love her? Did I really like know what love was? Like for me personally, like I didn't even know myself at that time. Like I knew so little about the world and about myself and about my parents and about, like I was just like, where was my mind then? You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't think about that time like, oh, like a lost great love. I think about that time as just like we were in high school, we got together, we lost our virginities to each other. But it wasn't like, even if I had said back then like, oh, I love you, like we love each other, like, yeah, like we care for each other, and like, I would be, but like love in terms of like truly, I think to the point where I come to understand it now, it was probably like one of the lowest relationships I had in that regard, in that caliber of love. But I was also the most naive and the most young and the most inexperienced, so I guess that kind of makes sense to me at least, but that was my first love in a nutshell.
How about you, Steven?
I've had girlfriends before. Can we turn that off? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I've had girlfriends before my first love, I would say. Like the girl I lost my virginity to, I would say she was my girlfriend, but I'm not sure if I actually like loved her. You know, I don't know. I don't know.
You didn't say you loved her.
I don't remember if I did or not.
Exchange the L words.
Huh?
Did you exchange the L words?
I don't remember if we did or not. So, yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. I was young and I maybe just like wanted to have sex, you know, and I was like just, you know, young man just kind of doing whatever I can to get sex, which is, you know, what young men do. But I think my first love was, and we used to like go to parties all the time, like go to raves and do drugs. And I think the drugs and like the love combined together like made everything just like super intense. Like our love was very heightened and intense because we would do drugs together and then we'd go and like have sex and like do all this crazy like partying. So our endorphins were like through the roof. And mind you, we're like 21. Our brains are barely developed, you know what I mean? So it was just on this like heightened scale, which I think is hard to match in other relationships in my life because of like the chemically enhanced nature of it. Like we're doing ecstasy and we're like partying all the time and like getting super in these deep, super emotional conversations. But when it became time to like move on from that part of my life, I don't think she was ready. She was still partying and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to like settle down a little. I was like 25. I was like, okay, it's time to like settle down. So I think that in that relationship, like there was really highs and super lows, man. We got in some like crazy like fights and arguments. It was just like up and down. It was so intense. Nothing like physical harm or anything like that, but just like yelling and screaming.
She never punched you in the face?
She never punched me in the face, but like, jeez, man, what a crazy, toxic, and fun relationship that was. Man, that was crazy. Yeah. She hates my guts. That's for sure. How about you, Miguel?
My first love, I will say, it was a uncorresponding. Not sure if that's the right word. Not corresponding love.
Oh, okay.
So I just love her, but she never know about it. You know, I was so kid, maybe middle school or before that. I would say around 12, 13 years old.
In Peru?
In Peru, yeah, when I was back in Peru in school, and I just feel, you know, like butterflies and all this kind of describing love things. And like I say, I was a chicken. I never decide to talk to her or something like that.
Do you remember her name still?
Yeah, her name is Jenny. She was really cute. I still have contact with her now. She's married and all that. Yeah, usually we get contacts with our friends from like middle school or high school.
Is she here now or is she still?
No, she's in Peru. And then I will say I love, like maybe feel this love feeling to girls when I was really like 12 to 16 years old. But like I said, I was a chicken. Like I don't want to talk to women, you know, or to girls. And then when I moved here, I came to United States when I was 17. So I went to high school, and that's where I had my official girlfriend. Kind of like I love her, and then like she also loved me back. And we dated maybe for like 6 months. Then it broke out, you know. It was mostly of a childish thing. Like in my mind, it was love, but in reality, now that I'm 40 years old, it was not the way I think love is now, you know. And when I was 22 years old, I got engaged at the time, and we were living together maybe for like 2-3 years, 2 years and a half to be exact. And I will say that was the most closest to like love that I think it was. Even like I still younger, like a younger age. And I remember when we were broke down, like the relationship, it really hurts me. And I feel this like feeling like you get the nice feeling of loving somebody and then leaving somebody too. It was like so hurtful for me, you know. So I will say that was kind of like my early stages experience of love.
That was your first heartbreak then?
That was my heart. Well, it was my second, but that was the one that really hurts me the most.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I mean, looking in a positive way, it makes me grow as a person, you know, understand more what love is. Even like it is hard to really understand love. Like maybe understand more myself like what I really want in a relationship. You know, it's not just about the feeling like I love you. It's way more things that comes when it's like being with somebody. And that's when it's related to a person. But when it comes to like something, I would say my first love was listening to music, like hanging out with people who like has music backgrounds. I really love uh, listening to music a lot when I was a kid.
So it's like different. That's like a different type of love. It's not romantic love, but it's
Yeah.
love for like
Yes.
music
And I love it because I just like it makes me calm. It makes me like in peace. Like it fills up my day in the morning. I turn on the music and I feel already like those vibe of like I want to do something. And I think like, oh, that's love. That's I love music. So
Nice, bro.
Yeah.
That's great.
it's pretty windy.
Yeah, it sure is.
So what is the next thing?
Well, we can do whatever we want. It's a free flow conversation that we're having here. So
What was you guys' first heartbreak? Like it really hurts you down the
I've
chest.
only had like one real one, I guess. In college, I dated this girl. We were both working at a restaurant, and we were serving at the Cheesecake Factory, and we got together. It was just like this completely odd couple. I'm just like this small little Asian guy. She was taller than me, this like white girl. I'd never dated a white girl before. I had actually never dated a Vietnamese girl, actually, to that point either. But she was a little bit older than me. She was 3 years older than me. She was a little bit taller than me. She was probably about like 2 inches taller than me. She weighed more than me, which is not to say a lot because I'm just like, at that time I was probably like a $130 soaking wet, But we got together because it was like a really good time. Like we just hung out and I just made her laugh basically, and that was it. We got together and everyone was just like, we were just like the it couple of the restaurant. It was kind of cool. And then we dated for like 2 or 3 years, and then she broke up with me, and it was tough. I remember it being really tough. I remember like really wanting her back. I didn't want it to end. It's like that feeling really, really sucked. Like I had never pretty much felt anything like that hardcore emotional before, I think. Yeah, pretty much can't. That was probably like the most hurtful emotional thing that I had gone through at that time. And, it was like a bad time for me in general, just based on where I was going. I was like alone in California. I moved out to California and I was just starting to work. It was like after I had graduated from college. And I remember like texting her and emailing her, like, please, like, give me another shot. Like all those things, like I used to look back at those moments and like cringe. I'm like, I can't believe you did that, dude. Like, but now just like I've come kind of full circle with it. I've like, have more compassion for that guy that I used to be. I was just so young, and like have more compassion for her and like just really be able to look at things with an objective lens, just understand like what it was, So I don't really cringe about it at all. If anything, I'm just like smiling, I'm just like, it's entertaining, to think about. You look back and it's just like, why judge it? You know what I mean? Like, why judge yourself? And it doesn't happen overnight to get there. It's like these phases. At first, like, oh, it's so terrible. And then it's just like, I guess you start to forget about it, like life has to move on, you know what I mean? Like it just has to, but even though you think about it still, and it still kind of hurts when you think about it, and like, obviously like life moves on and just like, then there were other things to worry about at that point. That was kind of like the beginning of my rock bottom in terms of like taking care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally, and really starting to grow up. I did have a drug and a rave phase after that, but that's not negative for me. Like I remember those days very fondly. I wasn't in a relationship ever, which would have been cool. Like, cause I can see how like just having somebody, and just even like going to the raves and just having like a rave buddy, that night or whatever, that was always really fun, just to have that intimate, that physical touch when you're just like super on. So
bowling balls, just
yeah, exactly. I definitely, I don't regret those times at all, but that was, that was my first heartbreak. Pretty much nothing after that.
Oh, jeez, man. Maybe you should go first. I still got to think, man, about my heartbreak. There's so many.
Your heart is bumping really hard right
Dude, yeah.
Just trying to think of
I was like,
Stirring the pot a little bit.
how about you? How was your first heartbreak?
way, my first heartbreak was with the lady I just mentioned
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's like
and the good, I will say, I always try to think if something happens, like some relationship ends in general, right? In work, with friends, with like your loved ones, there is always something like to learn. And also I think like I have to first see about me before just starting judging other people, like, oh, this work didn't work because my boss is like, he tells me to do all this stuff that I don't have to, or why she broke down with me, like I was doing my part. So for my first breakup, it really hurts me, but at the same time it helps me a lot to get better at myself first, like in many different aspects of my life. I will say that this was not a real love. Now that I think it better, even like I feel like I love her at that time, I think this relationship was based mostly on sex. Like, it was crazy the amount of sex were just having, like in random places. I mean,
That's
like,
nice.
uh, well, it was nice, but then later it's like, now in my age, it's like I don't just want that. I mean, it's cool, but that's not just love.
For sure.
I want more than that.
Did
So,
you think it was love back then?
well, at that time, yeah, I was 22.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
me, that was love. Right now, I feel like,
Did you tell her you loved her? Did you guys both?
oh
say that?
yes, we both say we love each other, but then after the breakdown, like it comes kind of like the depressing part, and then it comes the calm, and then you get mature, right? And then you start looking into yourself and trying to get better and different. It's like, for example, I will say most people when they break down, it's like, okay, now I gotta get fit, like I gotta start doing this and that because you wanna do the best of you. So that's good, but also I think that more than looking good or like making the money, or like being stable or like stuff related to like a social path that you have to take, is also how can I get better with my things, with my head. And at that time, I think I was so young that I think sex was very important, and I feel like I didn't treat her as I have to treat somebody as a person. Like it's not just about the sex. I was taking, I think, advantage of her, not because I wanted it to do it. Like I was not thinking about doing it, but now that I think about it, it's like, oh, I was taking advantage of her, and she's still with me for like a few years. So I feel bad. I feel bad. Like I feel bad. I was thinking like, okay, I need to change. I need a change, and I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but I try to be the best out of I can. For my own and for the other person. So, like I say, it hurts me. It was like a different stage. It hurts me breaking up with her. Then I hurt my own self. But at the same time, then I feel very positive in getting better, and you know.
Yeah. I think it's similar to like what I said. Like when you're a young man, like the desire and the urge to just like kind of have sex is very strong.
Your brain lives between your legs.
Yeah, straight up. So it's like so strong that it takes control of like all the other like desires, and it's like, okay, I gotta do this thing, however it can happen. Like I'm gonna make it happen. I think that's the mindset of a lot of young men. You know what I mean? And then I think a lot of young men kind of carry that on into being older men. But I think wiser men kind of learn from those experiences, and they're like, oh, okay, that's not quite what it's all about.
I think one of the reasons too is because of the social media, or what we have access to, right? Like I will say my generation. I mean, I'm 40 years old, but we were having access to porn in a young age, and you watch the movies and they just show you like, oh, you gotta. There is always love involved. If no, it's not a movie, And then we have this mindset up. Like, I mean, it just help us grow our desire for sex when you are young. You see the commercials, right? Hot girls in bikinis and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I think we don't really understand love when we are young.
for sure.
And
Based on what we
Yeah.
see in the porns and based on what we see in the movies and like what sells, like they always say sex sells, and what the ideal type of body is for a man or a woman, and how it's a pretty deep topic what you're just touching on, and you can even get into like what society and what the media wants to portray on, like kind of like maybe do they want to keep people occupied, just based on these really low vibrational states, just like focused on like sex and like, just I guess people are easier to control when they're focused on their lowest desires, like just focused on the fear and survival mode and just making money and having sex, like simple pleasures. Like if you can keep a lot of people focused on those things, they're never going to grow and wonder what else is there, what else am I capable of, when they're just so like an animal kind of, you know what I'm saying? I mean, is that weird to say? I mean,
No,
it's kind of, like
That's a good example, I think.
that's like really deep. Actually, I like have never really thought of it that way. It's like if you're thinking of it like a populist kind of control thing or a consumerism
Right,
sort of thing. It's like, hey,
it all
if you,
ties in.
yeah, if you get this cologne and you get this car, you're gonna have sex with hot babes, and it's like that's just like a model for people to get you to like consume or be a good worker because you are desiring this thing which is supposed to get you this outcome, Whoa, that is intense.
That's
Yeah.
And it took me years to understand that too, right?
Yep, of course.
Yeah, it's like until try to still understand the word love. And what do you guys will try to find in a relationship now? I mean, you guys older, like back in the days, have more experience.
Yeah.
What will you say what you are looking for in a woman if it comes to love,
Yeah. Well, I have recently dated a single mother, and that was an interesting experience for sure. But what I will say that it taught me is that I definitely want a family now. When I was younger, 25, whatever, just doing my thing, having fun, living in vehicles like a Honda Element, adventuring and traveling, all this stuff, I had zero desire for a family, just none. It just didn't occur to me at all. But after being with her and like seeing her interaction with her son and kind of getting like the experience of like the family life, I was like, oh, this is dope. And it brings a lot of meaning to life, more than just like adventures and seeing stuff. Like there's so much you can learn from being around kids, and they bring like so much joy and happiness when they're just like playing with like toys, and I don't know, something about it. So after that experience, I was like, okay, like this is definitely something I want. So which is great, because now when I go into whatever sort of relationship I'm going into in the future, I'm gonna be like, okay, I know I want kids, and I know that I want to live like a more traditional like lifestyle, so I can at least go in knowing that. Where maybe a couple of years ago I'm like, let's go have fun and travel, and I think your experiences can like kind of change what you want in the future. So that experience really had a profound effect of what I want out of a relationship and what I find to be valuable.
Yeah, that's big. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
Ooh, bro.
How about you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of like on the other side of that. I hear people all the time, and like all of my friends at this point, they have kids, they have multiple kids. I'm like kind of like Uncle Hal, like the single like traveling crazy guy, and it's like you hear people all the time just like, oh, like it's so stressful, but it's worth it. You hear that from mothers, you hear that from fathers, and I don't doubt that. I'm not here to like be like, nah, like I don't even doubt that if I was in that situation that I might like realize that too and be like, wow, this is. But for now, it's just like what's keeping me on my side of things is just that I'm single for so long, but I'm not just kind of like waving my dick around and just like partying, like that's done. And then now it's just kind of like the traveling, and it's nice, but I also think about like what it means for me to travel. And I think about what it means for me to be a single man in the world. I try to like step outside of myself for a little bit and stop focusing on just me and think about like how I can give back to society or how I can give back to the world, right? Because if you decide to have kids, then ideally you dedicate your entire lives to them, or at least 18 years of your lives, to provide for them and to show them love. And, I see a lot of the times that people have kids, but like the parents or they're just like, they still want to live their lives. And it ends up like kind of hindering the family dynamic when the dad is like wants to be free still, and he doesn't want he wants to pursue his business, or like some unfinished calling for him, or the mother is not ready to transition to be the stay-at-home mom for the rest of her life, especially with young kids now, like kids our age who are settling down. I feel like this is a toll that weighs heavy on a lot of them, you know, like this internet, half internet, millennial generation or whatever. Like, I feel like people are just like, the idea of a family, it's just like changing so much. And with the social media coming, it's like making people harder to just accept things like how they are. But what I'm getting at really, I don't want to get too far off topic. It's just that like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna dedicate to it, me personally, right? And I don't know that I want to do that yet, because I will not put a woman or a mother or a child in the position to suffer because I haven't dealt with what I need to deal with yet. I haven't really understood myself enough. I'm not going to make the same mistake that I see a lot of people making, because I don't want kids or families to suffer because I wasn't ready to have a family yet. And for me, I just don't feel like I'm ready to have a family yet. So I feel like it's like the traveling that I'm doing, it's not for nothing. I feel like learning more about yourself, it's just like everything you touch is better off for that when you are learning more about yourself. And I think that traveling solo is such a great way to see the world and make it mean something. You know what I mean? I'm not just like traveling and like eating food and drinking beer and like, you know, like it's like there is meaning to it for me. There's a great spiritual meaning behind the traveling that I'm doing and the hiking that I'm doing and the times that I spend alone, you know, just quite a bit like to think about. So for now, it's just like I'm super okay with being alone. So whatever I want to do, if I'm alone for the rest of my life, if it comes time to provide a service to the world or to give back, then I'll really know, you know, I'll really know who I am just from all this time that I've spent on my own. And I'll be very comfortable like giving back somehow, whether it's meeting someone and starting a family or starting a business or starting a charity or just, you know, until I find that, I'm just kind of working on me right now. And it's just, that keeps me going.
Nice. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I feel like you're living like the life I lived a couple years ago, right? Where I was exactly in house shoes. Like, I want to go out and explore and travel and like kind of like find myself and like just experience. I want to get all these experiences out of the way. But what I can say as someone who has kind of lived it a little bit, is that I'm still not done. Like, even though like I have this desire to like have like a family and like settle down and stuff like that, I don't know if that desire to like travel and like see the world and like just still discover yourself changed for me, at least. I think it's still like deep down within me, that urge to like see and travel, but now I want to do it with like a family. You know what I mean? It's still there, but I want that to share that experience with like my core family unit.
Oh yeah.
You know? So yeah, the desire is still there. And I don't know, I just feel like as a man it's important to have a little bit of independence. I feel like men are always like striving for challenges and things to work on and things to do. And I think
that's a great point.
And I think women like that. They like to see their man work and like go through challenges and stuff, you know?
It's tough.
Yeah. So it's an interesting like it's interesting. The world is interesting right now because everything is like it's some people want it to be 50-50, some people want it to be like traditional.
Totally. It's just
but
like where we came from in biology, I think about that. Like, you know, like I don't necessarily know that men were like at home raising kids, like, you know, in the beginning of time. I think they were out there like, because the men are big and stronger, right? So like they have to use that strength to go out and do shit and like not, and the women are like inherently taking care of the children, right? So I think biologically, I think it's hard to argue with that's how it used to be. It's not like you have these caveman families and they were just all like, you know, like the men are changing the diapers all the time, you know, like that's like they had to actually physically go out and get food or to hunt or to build things or to explore new territories to make sure things were safe. So I think it's like hardwired, like, you know, like that's also a deep question too. Like, what is hardwired, and like, are we fighting against that too much? Are we pushing against that, you know? Like evolving into something else. I think maybe that transition is a bit awkward now too, and just you see it in the health and fitness industry. You see it in everywhere. Like people are, on one hand, trying to evolve into this new society and this new way of living, but you have the other kind of people who are just like taking it back. trying to live simpler, like the paleo, and like, what's the optimal way to eat and to sleep and to raise your, you know what I'm saying? Like, there are those people who want to go back to like
Right.
the primal ways to argue about biology, and then there's people who like, well, society and culture and the norms are evolving now, and like women's roles and equality, like all that, kind of like moving this way. So that's something that I think about a lot as well.
Can you like shine light on your perspective as someone who like grew up in Peru? Like, at least maybe you can talk about how the society was, or maybe if you know how it is now, like how are their views? Are they more traditional? Are they like kind of like more modern? What is your...
I will say I can talk mostly like maybe if I go back 20 years, 15 years ago, because I didn't go to Peru for like a while. I used to go a lot, but now kind of like exploring other places more. But I will say it was based a lot in, like I mentioned before, like in the movies, or I was a kid, so I think it's when it was at that time in my head. But then now that I grow and I remember my parents, my uncles, I think it was based a lot in keeping the relationship together. Maybe they were having fights, something was not working out, and for them being together, like keeping the wife and man, was super important, whatever it happens. I will say, like back in the days compared to nowadays in Peru, uh, there was less like divorces, for example. I will say the percentage of divorces was like really low compared to, like, I would say America. So I can tell you like almost 95% of my older family when I was young in Peru, they still together. And if now it comes to my cousins, like mostly my age, I'm sorry, they are either divorced or they have kids, and now they have different relationships with different kids from with different persons.
Yeah.
So
What about
it's way different now?
like when you were growing up? Like, was it how was the family raised? Did the men go to work? I remember you telling me that it was like you lived with a bunch of people, and every morning, all the meals you guys would eat together. So I imagined in my head it was like you're living with grandmas and aunts. And did the
Yes.
women raise the children, or were the men present for that? Like, how was that dynamic? Like,
I will say most of my family, the men will work and provide, and women stay at home with the kids. But because I think, like in my age, it was the transition of how you were mentioning before, right? Like how they wanted it to live, and now the new generation is how they live. So we have this kind of like battle,
Shift.
yeah, like this shift. So I will say it was like in the middle, right? Like back to your question. What was your question, by the way?
oh, just like how was the family raised? Like, who
Okay,
was it, like,
so it was raised like, I will say 65% of my family, men will take care of everything, and the other 45% or whatever it was, 35%, it was going to work, mom and dad, and even that they have the kids. Because I think also I comes from like a kind of like a poor family neighborhood too, so they have to they have to work, both of them, to like build the house and stuff like that. But the most value that I can rescue or say the most positive will be my family don't giving up to each other as husband and wife. With whatever defects, whatever things that happens, they still together, you know. And that's something that I really look in a relationship. Is like nobody's perfect. We have different things, different likes, but if this person can makes me grow, and even like I did something that it might not be okay, but they can mention it to me, and you know give the point of view, and then I'm like, oh, I can think about it. Maybe I was wrong for so many years, and I can grow as myself. That's what it really looking for me in a relationship, that. And also, like, if we already like decide to live together with this person, and we are looking forward for our future relationship, for our goals, I think understanding each other, I think helping each other to grow is very important for me, because I don't like to just give up in something because I don't like it anymore. maybe she's not attractive anymore, we are getting older, or whatever reason. No, I was making money, you were helping me, now you are not helping me to support. Many reasons, it's just examples. And then you start giving up, and that's why you see a lot of breakups, a lot of single moms, single dads. And I don't like this. In Peru, I will say the most I learned is I need to work in this relationship. I don't want to break it for things like this. We have to go through it together, and especially if there is kids involved, right?
Right.
So
That's
Well, it's what I find interesting is like you were mentioning earlier is like with like social media and like dating apps and stuff like that, people are just disposable. Like you can like, you know what, like I have so many options. The options are limitless out there. Like if something's not working out, well, whatever, I just open up Tinder and I'll find the next one.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's like what is causing a lot of this like really high divorce rate and stuff like that, is that relationships are just not as valued as much as they were previously, you know, because it's just so simple to just open up an app and whatever, go on Instagram and double tap on someone, and maybe that gives you some feedback, like, ooh, like, or maybe like that person you double tap liked on their comment, they leave a comment or something to you, and it makes you feel like a little bit of like love and special or something like that. And those types of like feelings you would only get from like a strong relationship before, but now it's just like fed to you, and it's like dopamine algorithm.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can see that like oh, I'm getting validation from these outside sources, so I don't need that strong family unit.
I think going back to the biology of it, I think that maybe for a woman, there might be some pressure to have a child before they get too old. You know, they want to be mothers, and that weighs on them. And then for a man, he might choose just the sexiest woman he can find, or the strongest hips, or the biggest breasts, or whatever it is, right? And I think a lot of times people base what they're looking for, or what they will settle for, or what they're trying to catch on these like really simple biological factors, right? And then if you're going to do that, fine. If you're going to play the biology card, fine, but just understand that you have to live with this person for the rest of your life. So my point is that, okay, for a woman, if you decided now, just because you feel like your clock is ticking and you need to get somewhere, so this guy will do. So that if that was your criteria, you know, like I'm under time pressure, right? So I need to get with this guy fast. Well, then if you're going to make that decision, you got to be with that guy, right? For the rest of your life, or maybe not. You might have divorce, but you're going to have kids, right? So, and with the man on the other side, if you decide that you just wanted to get with this lady because she had a nice rack, pretty teeth, a big butt, well, is that going to be enough for you for the rest of your life? Are you going to be able to remember that like 40 years down the road, like, man, like I love her, like boobs are going to sag. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and then for the woman, it's just like, oh, like now my clock, it's still like time's still ticking, but I chose this, you know what I'm saying? Like what I'm getting at, it's just like, if you're going to make it about that, is it going to be like that for the rest of your life? Like, is that going to be important to you for the rest of your life, or is that just important to you now? And I feel like just like understand that, like it's not just about who you are now, it's about like who you can be in the long run and what's going to matter to you in the long run, because it is the long run. Ideally, you don't want to get divorced, you don't want to have that weigh on your children or your family. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just like, you know, people are just maybe not necessarily rushing into it, but just not being conscious enough about what it really means to get into a relationship and have sex and have children.
Dude, I feel for women in this case, because they have this like biological clock, and it's like, well, I mean, I don't want to say that, but it's just like, you know, they have to make the decision sooner.
Sure.
Right? Sure. And it's like, they're 23, 25, and they're like, shit, or shoot, I've got 5 years of good, like my prime, and I got to make a life-changing decision, you know? And then men have much longer, right? We can be 35, we can be 40, 50, and we're like, oh, now I'm ready. Now you know? And so I can't imagine that kind of pressure that they must feel, you know what I mean? And then being bombarded by like every dude out there, because every dude wants like the hot young 20-something-year-old, so just constantly being bombarded by all of these like suitors, you know, and just like, shit, like how do I pick the right one? And it's like I gotta do this quick, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's
got.
like the odds aren't necessarily stacked in their favor, you know, like all things considered.
I mean, I don't.
Just like making this pressure decision like fast and
I know it's
like
like
all
you
these
got,
options.
you gotta
It's
like
just like
date
it's a big one, man.
people.
It's a big one for sure.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
I mean,
And sometimes it's not just about the person feeling it, but also I think it can be family, you know, like depend of the cultures that they are from or the country.
Yeah, pressure.
Like
on
yeah,
all
it's like
sorts.
the pressure that hey, you are 35 years old, you know, like you gotta have this job, you gotta marry now, have 2 kids, whatever.
Yeah.
So can be frustrating for some people. Now that you mention and you know
Yeah,
put
man.
woman,
like
is
I was gonna say, like if I had to like marry my 25-year-old girlfriend, whoever she was, I guess looking like that probably wouldn't have been a terrible decision when I'm thinking about who she was. But just still to make that decision then, there's so much life ahead of me that I wanted to live,
Right.
you know, and I would have to like sacrifice it and then like start to have kids and stuff. It's a lot of pressure, man. You know?
It's yeah, it's built in, I think, to the human species. Like we're here because we reproduce, right? Like, and we want to pass down our genes and our DNA and the things that we've learned. So inherently, there's that aspect to it.
What I wonder is like that drive that I was feeling when I was a young man to just like have a lot of sex. I wonder if women feel that drive to have babies, you know, when they're around that age. If their like drive to like procreate is very high around that time, you know. I honestly don't know. I've never done research on it, but I'm curious now.
I'm pretty curious too. Like we are giving our men's perspective, right? But I also want to hear the other side and see how woman feels.
You guys like have any closing thoughts here? We can wrap this up.
I think in general, just from having this conversation, guys, I appreciate it for organizing this, Steven, and how. I will say, like, for the topic that we are talking about, for my own perspective, is very important that first you start loving yourself. You know, do your own goals, work for your goals, and I think everything with time is just gonna come. Like sometimes we are just rushing to find love. Like I have this rush, like I need to be to somebody. If not, I'm gonna feel criticized by friends or sometimes not even by people. Just you are the own criticized of your own self. So I think it's just focusing yourself. You know, do the things that you like, set up goals, and everything is gonna come with time. I will say that because was a point in my life like I feel like okay I need to be with somebody, and then later it's like why do I have this urge to be with somebody? You know, you just put pressure on you. And then I remember when I moved to my van in Florida, I never like this feeling was going to be with somebody. I started enjoying myself, working in my spiritual like person, like in my body, going to the gym, you know, exercising, hiking, setting up goals, saving money, and looking forward for my own life. And then it was amazing how just like love life from a woman came into my life. And then I just think like this is an advice maybe from my perspective. Don't rush it. Work in you first. If you cannot love yourself, it will be hard to love somebody else.
I'd like to piggyback on that as my closing statement. I think that love is unconditional love. I don't want to separate the two in my mind. There's like love is unconditional love. If you ask Havu, it's part of it. So when you look in the mirror and you don't like yourself because you are too fat or your muscles aren't big enough or this and that, then it shows that you have some room to grow. You should look in the mirror and love yourself no matter what. There should be no conditions, right? Just like if I had a girlfriend, it wouldn't matter if she had makeup on or not. I will still think she's beautiful because of her soul, like because of the whole picture. And when you look in the mirror, you should feel that same way about you. So when you look in the mirror and your thoughts are, I'm too skinny, I hate my hair, I hate my job, if you like have these kinds of thoughts, then obviously it's telling you that these are things you can work on. Because if you learn to love yourself more, everything else you can love more, whether it's a person, whether it's a job, whether it's life, which is so important. I think that love is just kind of love. And if you can't love yourself, then that's just like a huge opportunity to start learning how you can love better. Like love is like this, it's something that you are. It's not something that you give or someone gives to you. Like love is who you are, right? And if you see that, I think that it's a very beautiful thing once you can really just love yourself unconditionally, and you can look in the mirror and say like, I'm so grateful for this body, for this soul that I have, for this opportunity to live life. And once you can get there, then I think that carries to every relationship that you'll have, physical, non-physical, spiritual, whatever.
All right, guys. Sick. That was an intense topic, but I'm glad we went on this journey together. If you're out there watching, let us know what you think love is down in the comments. If you enjoyed this conversation, maybe you can leave a super thanks to help support this channel. Hal would love to shout out your new podcast that you just started. Maybe you can tell us briefly about that.
Thank you. I just started a podcast. It's called Living in an SUV. It's on all the podcast platforms, and on Instagram, it's actually SUV_Vanlife. I couldn't score the Living in an SUV name, so it's SUV_Vanlife, or just Living in an SUV podcast, all right?
And I do want to say I love all of you out there. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, wherever you're at. If you can't give a super thanks, that's okay. Perhaps consider subscribing to this channel so you can get informed whenever we release new videos. Miguel has his channel, Element Lifestyle. It's super awesome. Maybe check him out. I'll leave the links down below in the description. Not maybe, definitely check him out. I'll leave the links down below in the description. Thank you guys so much. Love y'all. We'll see you next time. Peace.